makeup, I'm not very can't refuse. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. Seeing as how it's the 50th anniversary of the original film by the name of The Godfather, I thought it only made sense to stop on by and do a movie review of the film. I don't think I've ever really talked about the Godfather films very much on this channel, as I'm not the biggest fan of these movies. I tried to be like when I was 14 years old and I was getting into, things like Dick Tracy, Rocketeer movies that took place in the 30s and stuff, and Dick Tracy was a lot about like gangsters and this and that, and I saw the original Bonnie and Clyde at that age as well, and I was just, at the age of 14, I was just becoming aware of that era in, basically first half of the 20th century and all that kind of stuff, and really dug that era. And my dad's like, well, if you like this era and stuff, maybe you'd like this movie. So we rented and watched The Godfather at the time. And honestly, to a 14-year-old and even to, someone who's older like my age now, it's, obviously these movies are kind of quote-unquote epics and long movies. Godfather is, close to 3 hours long. The second one is like over 3 hours long, and the third one I think is the shortest one, like at maybe 2 hours and 40-something minutes or something like that. But these are long movies, so really not necessarily tailored to teenagers. I can remember, liking it for what it was. Obviously at the time, the only thing I really cared about kind of was just the violence and the Tommy gun usage, of which there's not a whole lot in this movie. There's really not a lot of, I didn't really care about just people sitting around talking about deals and this and that and stuff. And I guess, I should probably say before I even start the review that, in my opinion, the Godfather films are, three of the most overrated movies ever. And honestly, it's funny, I don't know what, I guess it's the 50th anniversary, and, the blue-ray.com, they're releasing 4K, versions of these movies and stuff this year. And because I was trying to think why the hell why I'm even thinking The Godfather right now, but I think it's because when I go to blue-ray.com and I'm always seeing the, whatever the price or whatever the upcoming 4K releases of the films listed and stuff, and I'm like, well, it occurred to me, I bought my dad the DVD trilogy, the Coppola restoration, I think in 2009, when, he spent the winter, his first and last retired winter, watching some of the three Godfather films, and I'd only seen the first one. I saw the first one and the third one, I think, in like 91, 92-ish. I'd never seen the second one, so it was kind of cool at the time to see the second one. I'll do a separate review on that, of course, but I actually hadn't seen these movies at all since probably 2009, 2010, so it was kind of fun to revisit them. I actually watched the trilogy, and then I've actually I did the first movie again and the second movie again, so I've kind of been, having a Godfather spring this year, if you will, and having seen the first movie, I think it was at least 2 or 3 times so far this spring. For some reason, I just kind of been rewatching it, and I thought, well, might as well just stop on by and do a review of it. So honestly, if you don't know anything about this movie, the story is really just, it's basically about this, a bunch of mafia families in the, in the 1940s, and I think this movie starts like right after World War II, so it's mid-40s or whatever, and basically it's gonna be, I'm not gonna do a beat by beat, but everyone knows that it starts at this party. It's like the wedding for the Godfather, played by Marlon Brando's. It's his daughter's wedding day, and all kinds of Italian festivities and this and that. And incidentally, it should also be noted that the Italian composer who did a lot of the music for Fellini films did the music for The Godfather, or at least 1 and 2. I don't know if he was dead by the time they did Godfather 3. One can assume, but regardless, obviously his music's in all 3 movies, but I think he was alive to do the music for 1 and 2. And I don't know if he was alive to do the music for 3 or not, but Nino Rota did the music for the Godfather films. And one thing I will say, probably one of the greatest things about the trilogy, the Godfather films, is honestly the music that was composed to go with the movies. I think that if for me, a lot of people out there might like the movies for what they are, and that's understandable and whatever and stuff, but if I'm really thinking about this, I caught myself in the last several weeks just walking around the house or walking on walks outdoors or doing whatever, just having, humming the theme and just coming to my mind, and just humming it or whatever and doing different variations of different parts of it and stuff. So I do want to not forget to mention the music obviously is really, really a strong, one of the most iconic film scores ever made. And the theme for the theme and just the music in these movies in general is a really, really high point. But anyway, I'm going to try not to make this review as long as the movie itself, but starts at the Marlon Brando / the Godfather's daughter's wedding and all these people. I guess the reason, because I didn't understand it until I watched it like the second, third time, because I don't always hear all the dialogue. And I guess the reason all these people are coming to ask for favors from the Godfather on his daughter's wedding day is because, this guy being, Sicilian from Sicily, I guess the tradition of Sicilians is, no Sicilian can, refuse a favor on his daughter's wedding day. So I think that's why everyone's coming to ask him for a favor on this day, and it's just kind of like whatever. It's just it's just like whatever. That's one of the many whatevers about this movie. But so in an effort to keep this review more or less short, I'll just simply say that this movie, obviously by starting it at his daughter's wedding and stuff and this and that, it kind of makes you a part of this particular family, the Corleone family. So by starting it on a kind of an emotional or a happy or whatever you want to call it, kind of a quote unquote happy event of a wedding or whatever, it kind of makes you a part. The viewer kind of becomes a part of the Corleone family as a result, because we're not starting the movie with all kinds of violence and nefarious deeds that the Corleone family is doing. We're starting it with something that's more bright and cheerful and a bright sunny day and music and festivities and stuff. So it kind of, I will say the movie does actually work in that regard, is like by starting in that way, it kind of makes you get emotionally attached to the Corleone family and the family as a whole, as a result of that. And what's kind of interesting is, early on in the movie, one of the people that comes to ask him for a favor it's this singer guy, and he there's this perfect part in Hollywood for him, but the studio guy doesn't want him to be in it or whatever for personal reasons. And obviously the Godfather, sends one of his, trusted guys, who's not actually his son, but he's like adopted son, to Hollywood to change this guy's mind. This guy won't have it. He kicks him out of there, and of course the famous scene, which I will admit is pretty great. The first thing you see, I think, in the movie that really shows the other side of the Godfather in this movie is the guy finding the horse. He bought this. He paid a lot of money for this horse that he's just going to use to breed other horses with, and to find he wakes up one morning and finds the head of the horse in his bed and stuff, which is one of the most iconic scenes from arguably the movie and the trilogy as a whole. And for good reason. I do think that is an interesting, kind of a nasty and unforgettable way to showcase to the viewer, that because the movie started with the nice side of the Corleone family, and quickly, once that scene's over, it's like, well, we're not wasting any time, even though the movie's almost 3 hours long, we're not wasting any time showing the evil, nasty side of the Corleone family. And I just love how they do a dissolve from the guy screaming in his bed to like this shot of Marlon Brando, like like kind of like this is, he's got a more grimacing kind of a face, because we're transitioning from this nasty evil deed he just did to like, and he's kind of like, yeah, I did that, I had that done, kind of like, even though it's the scene that happens with Marlon Brando that we're transitioning to, it doesn't, he's not talking about that per se. But to try to cut this review shorter, I will say that The Godfather, the movie, to me, when I was 14 and watched it for the first time, I kind of regarded this movie as being more a Marlon Brando kind of movie. But if you really watch the whole thing, it's not a Marlon Brando movie. In a way, the Godfather trilogy, one could say, is kind of like the Star Wars trilogy, in that, or not even trilogy, but the Star Wars, the 6 Star Wars films, where the whole 6 films are really about, Anakin Skywalker and his rise to becoming, whatever, Jedi, and then going to the dark side and then turning good again. Arguably, the same thing obviously can be said for the Godfather trilogy, and not only just the trilogy, but more or less even the first film itself. This is the story not so much about, I kind of regarded this movie when I was 14 as being about Marlon Brando. He's the Godfather, but when one watches this movie, I mean, it's kind of like I'd forgotten all this, not having seen it for like a decade or more. That the movie's not about Marlon Brando. It's about, his son Mike, his youngest son, I think, who I love how at the beginning of this movie he's just coming back from World War II and he's got this girlfriend played by Diane Keaton. It's funny because I mostly see Diane Keaton in Woody Allen movies, so it's interesting to see her in, young in a different kind of a role, more of a dramatic role in all three of these films. But and it's funny because Michael has no interest in really the family business or anything like that, and he wants to go off and just do his own thing or whatever. But as this movie wears on, it becomes more about Michael having like zero interest in the family business and stuff too. By the end of the movie, he's the head of it. And that's I guess the kind of the most interesting thing, I guess, about this movie is the events that cause that to happen, or seeing the events unfold that will drag. Michael's just trying to live his own life with Diane Keaton character in this movie, and he just wants to live it seems like he just wants to live a normal kind of a quiet life with his girlfriend, maybe marry his girlfriend and just live a normal life. But the events that transpire, as this movie wears on, kind of drags him into the fold, and where he like no one else in the family seems to be doing what's necessary, and he kind of takes the reins and takes over. And that's kind of an interesting thing about this movie. And it should be said that I regard this is my favorite Godfather film of the three, just for that reason. I think that it's definitely, in my opinion, that it's the most interesting of the three films. I'll talk about obviously the pluses of Godfather Part 2 when I do that review, but for my money, the most interesting thing about this movie is just seeing that transition of Michael from just kind of guy who just like wants to be an everyday Joe at the beginning to basically taking over his father's business by the end of the movie. So basically what ends up happening is early on in the movie, the Godfather, the Corleone family meets with this other mobster who's involved with drugs and stuff, and the mobster wants to get him into the drug business, but Corleone's like, the Godfather's like, oh, I don't want to get involved in drugs. And when he goes to meet that guy and turns him down, then that guy puts a hit on the Godfather. So I didn't even remember this, but early on in the movie, I mean, Marlon Brando gets gunned down, so and then it's just in a scene that, because when I was watching it for the first time this year after not having seen it for over a decade, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I don't remember him dying so soon, like, because he gets shot so many times. I figured he died, but he doesn't end up dying. He goes to the hospital and stuff, and at this point, this is where Michael really starts to take notice and is just like, oh my God, once he realizes that he's in New York with Kay, that's Diane Keaton character's girlfriend, just doing Christmas shopping and this and that. Once he sees in the paper that his dad was gunned down, and he doesn't even say in the paper if he's alive or dead, that's when Michael transitions from just living the simple life to obviously he wants to go and basically make sure his dad's okay and save his dad and stuff. And that's the scene I thought was really interesting, the hospital scene when he goes to the hospital and it's just like empty and there's no guards there because the police chief called him off. And his dad, the Godfather, the Marlon Brando character, is so freaking helpless in the hospital, just laying in bed, unconscious. No one's there, so it's just like just by fate, just by fate that Michael got there moments before the potential bad guys got there to finish the job on his dad. And that scene, I think is really great when he goes to the hospital, and it's just like, even on multiple viewings, I watched it a couple times this spring. It's just like, wow, that scene is just really creepy. It's just that the hospital is just empty, and you expect him to open the hospital door to his dad's room and just see his dad hanging from the ceiling gutted or something like that. But they do this slow thing where they slowly open the door, and like when, as the door is inching open, like moment to moment, you're like, oh my God. And then as soon as his dad is revealed in the bed, like seemingly okay, you kind of have a sigh of relief, but not completely, because it's like, well, he could be dead. And then he walks over to him and kind of, I can't remember, somehow make sure he's alive or whatever. And then it's just like, once it's revealed that he's still alive, like as an audience, you're just like, oh, Thank goodness. And that's what I mean. Like, by starting the movie, with that family celebration and in the broad sunny daylight and happy music and happy times, you get kind of attached or, emotionally invested in this character. And especially, when he becomes kind of the victim so early on after being, shown how strong he is and stuff, you really, really kind of, to the movie's testament, or to the testament of the movie's ability or whatever, you do definitely feel and care, or I guess I felt and cared for the Marlon Brando Godfather character. But obviously at this point, this is where Michael really takes control and really starts to take control. And obviously it's his idea. And this is, he really starts to take control of the family, and it's his idea to basically kill the guy, the drug guy who he had a meeting with his dad to try to, have him join the drug business, and kill that guy and the crooked police chief. So in that famous scene where they hide the gun, in the bathroom or whatever behind the toilet, and comes out and shoots them. And then Michael, it's recommended that Michael go back to like Sicily for a year and just lay low and get the hell out of the country for a while. And honestly, that part of the movie I actually really like, because it's very, I mean, one can only assume it's actually filmed in Sicily, and that part of the movie I actually really like, where he's just in Sicily and hiding, and he's got these guards that are constantly going with him, and then he meets this really hot ass chick, and really, I don't think they called them chicks back then, but really hot ass chick, and he actually ends up getting married to this chick. And then one of his guards, I think, conspires, or one of his guards is bought off and puts a bomb in his car meant to kill him, but his girl, or his wife at the time, young wife, was going to drive the car up to pick him up, just yards away. I'll pick you up, stay there. So it's just like boom, her intention was to start the car and drive a few yards and pick Michael up so they can go wherever. But the bomb intended to kill Michael, or both of them or whatever, just killed her, and it was just kind of tragic. It's funny because when you watch a movie, I think they had like a stuffed, like a dummy or mannequin of the girl in the car, because I think you can see it like kind of just, I don't know, after the explosion, just sitting there in the burning car, like kind of half, like partly blown out of the vehicle, and just see this fake kind of dummy of the woman, I think. But whatever, it's 1972, we'll cut them some slack. But obviously after that, I think sometime later, Michael will come back to America and do whatever and this and that and this kind of stuff. And my problem with the whole Godfather trilogy is it's like this movie's nearly 3 hours long. I think I've seen it 3 times this spring, and it's like, honestly, I can't, I don't want to do a beat by beat for a 3-hour movie anyway in this review, but I'll basically just say that, like, that's the gist of the movie. And I think by the, as Michael, when he comes back from Sicily and having all this negative stuff happen to him, where he like met this hot ass chick and married her and had sex with her presumably, and who knows what else and stuff, and having her be killed, I mean, that probably really made him even more hard than he was before. He went there, and after his dad was doing this and that. So by the time he comes back to America, he's just like this hardened, just kind of mob boss, just in the making, and maybe and stuff like that. And honestly, I can't even remember. I don't think there's much of the movie after he comes back from Sicily, but obviously the famous scene, towards the end of the movie, he actually becomes godfather to his sister's child, I guess, and it kind of it's kind of a symbolic of, him now becoming the new godfather, replacing his dad. Obviously, there's that famous scene where Marlon Brando's chasing, I don't know, I don't know who all these kids are. There's some young kid, maybe it's Marlon Brando's character's grandson, chasing around this little growth of whatever kind of vegetable or whatever they got in the backyard with the little spray thing, and he puts the peel in his mouth and stuff and chasing around, and he kind of just drops dead. And his, the Marlon Brando character gave Michael some good advice before he died, and actually advice that ends up coming into play, I think, before the movie ends and stuff. But obviously there's this famous scene towards the end of the movie where his sister's kid is getting baptized, and he's becoming godfather to the kid or whatever. He's having all these other people, these mob boss guys, assassinated and killed and stuff. Michael's, after what he experienced with, basically preemptive strikes being, or a preemptive strike being done to his dad, he's kind of, the way he looks at it, he's just going to get rid of his enemies before they have a chance to do that to him. And I forgot to mention, like, while he's in Sicily, one of his brothers actually gets gunned down. I mean, that's what these movies basically are. It's just like back and forth, you know, we'll make a hit on you, then we'll make a hit on you, and it's just kind of like tennis, you know. Okay, the Corleones make a hit on them, they make a hit on the Corleones, and you know what's kind of funny about these movies, if you think about it, is they're in this business, this gangster business, and it's just like, I don't know, when people in the family are killed, it's just like, I don't know, it's like, how can you, it's hard to feel sorry for them, honestly, because it's like, well, it's kind of like live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing, and it's funny to, you know, when they're, you know, it's just, so that even before the first movie of the trilogy is over, it's kind of like already a little bit like you get sick of the back and forth, like, okay, they make a hit on them first, we're going to hit them back, okay, they hit us back again, now I'm going to hit them harder, and that's basically what the whole trilogy is about, if you sum it up in, you know, one sentence or whatever. But honestly, you know, this movie, obviously, the strong point for me, as I said, is just to see the arc of the Michael character go from just indifferent, I don't care, I just want to be an everyman, to, as things go on and his dad's life is, you know, threatened and stuff, like him basically taking over, and by the end of the movie becoming, you know, the head of the family and basically replacing his dad, and that classic shot of, you know, and even, you know, it's unfortunate how it kind of gets obviously in the way of between him and his wife. I can't even remember if they, I would assume they get married in this movie, you know, the Kay and Michael, if they get married, I would assume so by the, you know, happens before the movie's over. But that classic shot at the end of the movie where, you know, Diane Keaton character, his wife, girlfriend, whatever she is at the end of the movie, is out there, and these guys are in the room, and they, you know, it's funny because at the end of the movie, you know, in the office, Michael and Kay have this conversation. Then she goes out of the office to, I don't know, get him a drink or something, and then these guys just come out. You know, they just come like they were in a different corner of the office the whole time. They just, you know, they're like they approach Michael. You can, you know, from inside the room, because we're seeing this happen from outside the room, the office. They approach him from inside the office. So what were they doing? Just standing in the corner while earlier in the scene when Kay and Michael were having kind of a private conversation. I don't understand that. I don't know if the viewer is supposed to like not pay attention to the fact that they just come, you know, it's not like they walk into the office. They just come into the shot already in the office. It's just really weird. But, you know, they approach Michael, and this is kind of like kiss his hand bullshit, so basically indicating that at the end of this movie he has become, replaced his dad and become the Godfather. And the classic shot where, you know, Kay's looking back in at him, and we see her kind of a zoom shot, and like the door, someone walks up to the door and starts to shut it, and we cut to her and we see the door shut in front of her, and it cuts to black. And that's like an awesome final shot for this movie, I will say. And having watched it 2 or 3 more times, I do think that the credits roll way sooner than they should. It seems like they roll like right after that happens. I would have had it on black maybe a little more longer before the credits started to roll. But my star rating for Godfather is, it's difficult, because it's one of these movies where it's kind of like I respect it for what it is, but at the same time I think it's like hugely overrated. So my star rating is, it's difficult. You know, I think it's really a difficult star rating. It really is. I mean, because I do feel like, even though like what it's about and stuff can get a little like eye rolling and stuff, I do feel like it's a very, very, it's funny how I feel about this franchise, or in general. Like, it's kind of like a love-hate thing. Like, part of me is like it's overrated, but then part of me is like I understand why it's so popular. But I guess I guess in my opinion, like this first movie, I mean, it's crafted, and like it's really well done, and it looks beautiful, especially on Blu-ray. And I didn't mention that when I was watching the DVDs, I'm like, you know what, let's just get, you know, just the Blu-ray. I was able to find the trilogy used for $15, so I got the Blu-ray trilogy, and you know, just of the, you know, the non-4K, the ones that have been out for a long time, but looks really good on Blu-ray. I'm just trying to think of, it's kind of like these movies, or at least the first 2, are done really well. It's just like what they're about really isn't that interesting at the end of the day. I guess we'll just give it 4 stars out of 4 stars, because it's, you know, it's like you can't argue that it's not a well done movie. You know, it's just like to give it less than 4 stars. I just feel like is I don't know. I guess it'd be like 4 and or 3.5, somewhere between 3.5 and 4. Maybe not 4. Maybe like 3 3/4 stars out of 4. I mean, it's just like there's definite greatness here, but at the same time, it's just like just the back and forth and this and that of what's going on just gets kind of old. But so I don't know. Maybe more like 3 3/4 stars out of 4 for The Godfather, because I do feel like as much as it is overrated, like a lot of its a lot of its praise, it is deserved, but at the same time, it's just like, oh, whatever. I think it's more about like just continuing to make movies and kind of milk the situation. I think as the movies go on, I guess I begin to have more of a problem with them as they go on, not so much a problem with this first movie. So we'll just go 3 3/4 stars out of 4 stars for The Godfather. I think that pretty much does it for my review. I hope it wasn't too long. If it was, oh well. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.
Godfather, these men, they come to my home and they kill my mother after raping her and my kids. Gracias. Godfather, I believe I know who done this.
Well, I think I could take care of these people if you pay me a substantial amount.
Ethan, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? God, what am I gonna do?
You can act like a man! What is it? What is this stuff? Thank you! Thank you!